Authentic Experts with Kara James, the show that takes you around the world to share interviews with some of the most successful and relevant people on the planet. Hear their stories and get the most important business lessons they have learned on their road to success, and get exclusive advice on how to implement their success into your life and business. Authentic Experts with Kara James is brought to you by the Strategic Advisor Board and your host, Kara.
Hi, everybody. Kara James here from Authentic Experts. And with me today, I have Kristen Elworthy. And Kristen founded Seven Hills Communications on the premise that marketing and PR can be affordable ways to boost a brand image. She believes in a clear strategy that's also flexible and in working with her clients in ways that make most sense for them. Kristen has worked in corporate marketing and in the PR agency world, and her journalism background, which includes newspaper reporting, magazine writing, and producing documentary films, makes her particularly equipped to help businesses tell their stories across a variety of channels. She has a Bachelor of Arts in Communication and Psychology from Boston College and a Master's of Science in Journalism from Boston University. Awesome. Kristen, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thrilled to have you. So let's just jump right in. When we were talking a little bit before we started recording here, let's talk about overall PR strategies for experts and what they can expect and what's reasonable, and what they need to think about putting their stories together. Right? What do you suggest for that?
Yeah, so we work with experts in a couple of different ways. Some are just pure experts, right? So if it's a nonprofit, it's the executive director or an author or somebody who's really just out there, getting their personal brand out there. And then also we'll work even with our larger companies, with the founders, to get their expertise out. And often it's not necessarily what you would expect, right? It's not that they're talking about their product per se, but there might be other things in their background. So when we think about it, we really try to dig into sort of two different things. Number one, we all the things that they know. We kind of do this big interview where we're, what are the things what's your history, what's your past, all that stuff. And then where does that intersect with your messaging and where you want to be? Because lots of times there's really interesting stories people have, but those don't really apply. They don't cross section with what they want to be putting out in the world. So really try to find that intersection and think about how we're going to allow somebody to speak about that, come up with messages that are different than what their, peers or competition, depending on how they look at it, are saying. And we really think about it in a few different ways. So there's what I call it sort of the evergreen strategy piece, which is these are things that they're talking about all the time. They're always relevant, that type of thing. Then there's more what we're pushing out if it's like announcement driven or news driven from them. So if they are an author and they're launching a book. And then the third track is like the news trend piece. So we work with a DEI consultant, for example, who is doing tons of interviews right now on AI and hiring, recruiting with it. And so as you can imagine, that's purely news driven. There was an announcement from like a federal regulation that came out, and that drives a lot of inquiries and press for her. So we sort of try to look at it in those three ways. Obviously, two you can control and one you cannot. And so that third one is where you really have to be flexible and be ready to jump in and be ready to think about how you're going to position yourself on news trends. So that's how we look at sort of approaching it. And that's how I suggest people, when they're thinking about how to position themselves, they look at it too. They sort of write down everything that they can talk about, where that intersects with what they want to talk about, and then how, what's interesting to, in this case, media or podcasters or whomever they're thinking about getting in front of.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at that. I never thought about that. Yeah, that's perfect, right? Yeah. Break it down into three pieces, and then your brain can process that and go, okay, well, what's going to work now? And this is what I want to push out, this week or what have you. Especially with the
exactly.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, great.
Yeah. And I find having that evergreen piece, like almost thinking of it as a content calendar, the same way you would think about your other content, because what most people get stuck on when pitching themselves, myself included, is that first step. Like, what am I going to say? Who am I going to reach out to? So if you sort of give yourself a bit of a calendar, it feels less intimidating. You sit down and think about that first, and then that's all planned out, and then you can go do it. And it feels like you're just executing your own plan at that point.
I love that. Yeah, exactly. Giving you the stepping stones, because sometimes it's so overwhelming, right? You just don't even know where to start. Like, well, there's so many things in your head, or you're thinking, which way do I want to go? But yeah, like you said, if you lay it out, and that's exactly what I did when you were saying that, like, you know what, break it into these 3 pillars. Great.
Exactly. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So how about developing a media list that's going to be, interesting and what they're going to say, and some of the
Yeah.
tools, free tools for that.
Yeah, so a lot of folks have, this is another major block that people have where they're like, I don't even know who I would pitch. My first hack is always look at, again, the competitors and the peers. You look at Google search, where have they been mentioned? Where are they writing? Where are they appearing on podcasts? Create a Google Doc or a spreadsheet, however and just start putting people in, their names, their emails. I always like to put a link to the article or what the podcast or whatever that made me put them on the list, because that's kind of how I'll customize and tailor the pitch. And sort of like, that's a little hack so that you don't have to go back and re-research them every time you want to pitch them. So that's one way. And then any, keywords. And then also, what are you reading? What are your clients reading and listening to? Just start kind of compiling that. You can set up Google Alerts. Those are free for peers or competitors, for keywords. In this case, for if there's a specific news story trending, you can set up Google Alerts for that and start adding folks to your media list based on that. But I mean, it's really just a spreadsheet. You'll want to, most emails are actually like, you can track them down on Twitter, or there are like paid media databases for emails, but if you're doing your own PR, often you can track these down one by one. And one free tool that I really like for generating a media list is called One Pitch. I don't know if it'll stay free forever. It's free right now. It's onepitch.co. You can create your pitch right in there. So they ask you to put a paragraph and a few bullet points in the subject, and they generate based on, I don't know if it's AI or what they're doing to generate the list, but they generate lists of reporters that would theoretically be interested in this pitch. And I will tell you, it has been, I've looked at it based on, so, I've been doing PR for over a decade. I usually can come up with a list out of my head for clients right away. And then I'll input the pitch into One Pitch sometimes to see if they generate some other ideas. And it aligns usually pretty close, which tells me that what they're generating is pretty good. I always look at them and make sure it matches. It's a pretty good tool. Again, right now it's free, really cool. They also have like awesome podcasts where they talk to journalists so you can hear about how they want to be pitched. I am not affiliated with them anyway. I just find them like as a free tool for DIY PR. They're excellent. It's really helpful to help you think about how you're going to do your PR.
Wow, Kristen, what a major gold nugget that was.
The other place that experts should be that is also freemium is Quoted with a QWOTED. And that is journalists putting out, it's kind of like a more sophisticated version of Help a Reporter Out, which most people know about now.
Oh, yeah.
You can set up a profile there for free. Journalists can find you. They put out their calls for, looking for somebody to talk about XYZ, and you can pitch. I believe you can do 2 pitches a month for free, and then there's a paid version. It's not super expensive. And so you're actually responding to what journalists are looking for, which is really helpful because, you're giving them what they want. And sometimes the other little hack there is taking a look at who's asking for these things, because even if it's not quite right for you, if they're covering something close, put them on your media list, because you can reach out to them with an introduction.
I am just writing fast and furious.
I can send you these links.
I can go listen to this. This is fabulous. Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
Oh my goodness. And what materials do you use? How do you pitch yourself? What do you?
Yeah. So when we bring a new expert on, we always want a good bio, which is sometimes a little different than the bio they make on their website. So we kind of give it like the PR glow up on that. I try to add, some fun facts. We have an entrepreneur who, the company is an AI company. He happens to have spent his whole career in speech recognition and AI. And he told me once that when he was growing up, he preferred talking to robots over humans or machines over humans. And I put that in his, like, when we pitch him, because I just think it helps you stand out. It gives you a chuckle, right? So that kind of bio, headshot, those are like foundational. You've got to have those when you're pitching. And then I recommend people do this for themselves. We put together, those initial pitches, like what are those first 3 things we want to go out there with? Oftentimes it's an intro. Hey, I saw you wrote this piece about this. Next time you're covering this, or, if you're covering something similar, talk to this person, you should talk to me or this person, or whoever. And here's, few bullets on, who I am and why I'm an expert on this. And here's my bio or my LinkedIn, like would love to connect with you there. Just gets you on radar. That is actually it's not a fast turnaround strategy, but it is a great strategy that pays off sometimes 6 months later when someone comes back to you on something. But I always suggest, similar to like, get that media list, think about what you want to pitch and write those pitches out. Do those one thing at a time, because now you have a media list that you just had to think about making that. You have pitches that you just had to think about writing. You have a calendar of what you want to pitch. And now you just have to put it all together and go do it. And I find that feels much more doable for people than saying, write an email to a reporter to introduce yourself, which is just like a totally overwhelming thought for most people.
No, absolutely. And what you've given here today are just little bite-sized pieces that are perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
You mentioned,
I do this for myself also, if it makes it's helpful, because I find it very
for 10 years, right? And been a very successful business. Then it's all about the bite-sized pieces and making things real and doable. And we can't just sit down. I know I used to write down like, work on my website. What the hell does that mean?
Exactly. And the other thing about it is happen. And the other thing is just like patience. I mean, PR is very much a long game. You will get someone coming back to you. I just had someone, it was over 2 years since I had sent the pitch for a client that we don't even work with anymore. I just forwarded it to them and was like, if you want to do this podcast. And sometimes that's extreme, but it can take months on occasion for us to hear back from somebody. And that's totally okay. That's just part of the process. And then it could take a few more weeks or a few more months for something to publish. My husband is an entrepreneur, and he started his business 2 years ago, and it's a product company, but he just said to me the other day, he's like, I can see how all the stuff that was published in 2021 is now feeding into all of the strategy we're doing now. So thank you. Can you go talk to everybody about can I have you on? Can I have you on client calls? Because it really is. It takes time to build. And then also it takes time, like you've got to do those trades and those podcasts and stuff to get your chance. And this is quite literally, we've seen this with clients, to get your chance on the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, NPR. We've done that. We've established those trades, and then boom, there's a news story. And that's when we start reaching out to tier ones. And when they go to Google you, you've got tons of credibility, that you've been quoted everywhere.
Overnight. Yeah,
exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a process. Again, that's step by step. Loving what you're giving us here.
Exactly.
Right. What do you have any suggestions? I know this is kind of vague, and this is what I do as well, but just how to help people differentiate themselves, right? What would you say if you want to even just pick an example rather than just in general, an example client?
Yeah, let me think. So I think talking to other people is really helpful. It's really hard to see yourself through your own eyes. You don't need to hire a publicist to do this. Yeah. But even talking to your clients, listen to what you don't even need to ask explicitly. What are they saying that's different about you compared to other people they've worked with or that they've been exposed to? That's one piece. Yeah. I would say, thinking about how your peers are representing themselves and making sure you're not doing the exact same thing, because you just won't stand out. But the other piece of differentiation is, there's a lot of experts doing the same thing. So starting to establish that credibility through, podcasting, media, LinkedIn, making sure this is cobbler's kids have no shoes stuff, because I'm not great at this myself time wise, but making sure you're out there, whatever you're pitching, like you should be talking about that on LinkedIn too, sharing about that on LinkedIn, because those are the places reporters are going to go look for you, to like help you build that credibility and that differentiation. Think about that. And then also just think about the things, have that conversation with somebody and be like, what, when we talk about, I'm going to give you the example of the DEI consultant, because I've already mentioned her that we work with. Her background is at, big consulting companies. She did, 20 years in consulting, not in DEI consulting, just, regular consulting. And so she operationalizes, she is very strategic, like on the business. It's not all sunshine and rainbows and ideals. It's very, very, very practical advice. And that's her thing, practicality. And we really hone in on that because she's going to give you not just how it should be, but like how it is and how you can get there. And that's how we differentiated her. So that's a great example of just like thinking about how her background feeds into that for her. So yeah, that's one way we did it.
Very helpful. Great. Thank you. And even at the beginning, like you said, it comes right down to, even as odd as it may be, right? Well, we all know what it's like to be too close to your business, right? Can't make your own label when you're too far in the jar. But just asking those around you, right?
Yep.
As odd as it is, you know, how do you see me is different than other coaches or than other PR agencies or whatever it may be,
100%.
right? Because they're going to bring up things that, oh my gosh, I never thought about that, or I didn't realize that, or oh yeah. So I've actually happen as well.
And if you're investing in a coach or a mastermind or something like that, I do think those are really good places to ask those questions. I'm in a group with other service business owners, like small micro agencies, and we ask questions like this about ourselves all the time. And you hear from, you know, people in different industries just trying to help you think more clearly. It is almost impossible to do this totally on your own unless you have really done the work to define your business and clarify how you're very different. And even that might not play with press is the other thing, because you can't give a big, long explanation. Sometimes it's just showing how smart you are. So sometimes, and literally like how differently you think. So sometimes those bullets that are like, you know, this news event happened, so-and-so can speak to it. Here are 3 things he or she can talk about. Boom, boom, boom. And if those 3 things are different than what everybody else is emailing, your chances are better, right?
Yep, exactly. Yeah, perfect. Well, thank you so much. You really are just all the gold nuggets. That might be the title of it.
Love it. Happy to help. Happy to help.
So do you have any programs or offers that are ready to launch or that are out there now?
Yeah, so we for the past over a decade, it's been, you know, fully done for you PR services. But we did launch about a month ago what I call a done with you for experts. So a lot of times there are a lot of programs out there where you can kind of build your pitches and then go off and do your pitching, sort of the process that I talked about here. I feel like that's setting people up for failure because most people fall down when they start. They get nervous. They don't want to do it. So the way that we designed it is we do that whole strategy session and then we stick with you for 3 months where we're checking in with you. There's 3 calls. Great. We're making sure that you're actually doing the outreach and answering your questions. If you get that interview, we're prepping you for it. So it's sort of holding your hand for a little while, because I find after that first period, people feel confident and they see that they can go ahead and do it themselves.
Sounds perfect.
Yeah.
Sounds like the perfect way to go about it, right? You don't want to just the wolves, but yet we're also going to let you go and show you how let you go. Awesome.
Yeah, a lot of experts cannot afford to hire a publicist or a PR agency. That makes complete sense to me, right? If you don't need massive press, every month, you just want to keep the drumbeat going and you have the time. Again, this is for someone who has like maybe a little more time than they have money at first. So I think it's really good to do your own PR for a little while. Oh, did I cut out? Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. I think yes. So to recap, yes, doing your own PR for a little bit. Absolutely.
Yep.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being here. I do have one last question that I ask everybody. Is there a book that you recommend or a documentary that you think would be helpful for the audience?
Yeah, so I have just started reading, and this is not a new book, Profit First, which I'm sure a lot of your audience members have heard about.
What was it, Kristen? I missed it. Sorry,
sure. Sorry, it's Profit First.
Oh, okay.
Which I'm sure a lot of listeners have read and heard about. It just, every once in a while, it's helpful to take a refresh. Mm-hmm. It is basically how I've always structured my business anyway, and I've used the spreadsheets and stuff, but I was like, it's time to go back and really read through it all. And sort of just get that perspective again. So I think it's super practical and helpful to kind of get your feet under you.
Sure is. And thank you for that reminder.
Yeah, of course.
Off the shelf. But yeah, thank you. Well, I hope you'll come back again.
Yeah,
anytime. Out some more gold nuggets that you have.
Sure thing.
Absolute thrill to have you. So thanks for joining us, Kristen.
Thank you. Talk soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Authentic Experts with Kara James. Please leave your feedback and visit strategicadvisorboard.com to get the latest and greatest business advisement on the planet. Follow us on social media for updates, and we'll see you on the next episode.